Hey there, this is Ash Gravity coming to you with a weekly astrology forecast for the week of February 1st through 7th. And I'm actually recording this in not my childhood bedroom, but my teenage bedroom right now because I am staying with my parents for a few days before I head back home. So it feels a little weird and surreal to be recording this video here right now. And if you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen that I was in Joshua Tree over last weekend, which honestly it feels like just a few days ago, but it was it was a whole week ago, and was there kind of around when the full moon in Leo happened, and realized while I was there that I had actually been in Joshua Tree just 2 years before during the full moon in Leo. So it's so interesting and wild how astrology and timing techniques just line up with, these seemingly kind of insignificant events in our life, but they're actually really significant events in our life, because one of the things that I realized when I was up there was that I had been in Joshua Tree working on a writing project. I had been writing a memoir, and all I wanted to write about was astrology. I just kept writing about this memoir through the lens of astrology. And now I was on this trip traveling and was actually working on, recording my weekly forecast for the week ahead and recording my podcast. So I think a lot of stuff like that came up for people around this most recent full moon in Leo, especially people who have their north node in Aquarius. It seemed like that those kind of synchronicities were coming up a lot for people, so that was really cool. In terms of announcements, the two things that I have going on right now is I am doing the relationship highlights reading for the month of February. So that's a 20-minute recorded reading. It's not a live reading, for two people, just kind of giving them a sense of what the most important things to know about their relationship are. And people have asked me, does it have to be for a romantic relationship? It absolutely does not. I've had people reach out to me wanting me to look at them and their business chart. I've had people who are friends, wanting to do it together. So of course, not everybody is in a romantic relationship, but we all have relationships in our lives, and I'd love to help you look at the most important astrology for whatever relationship is most important to you right now. And then the other thing that I have going on is February 11th, we'll have our second Star Circle meeting. Last time we talked about the birth charts of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and we also looked at the charts for the people who were in the group. It was a lot of fun, and time really flew by. So if that's something that you're interested in registering for, you can find the link to register for that in the description below. And if you're interested in booking a relationship highlights reading, you can find all of the info for that in the description below this video too. And of course, if you want to get notifications for every time that I put out a new weekly astrology forecast, you can hit subscribe and it'll send you a notification every time I put a new one out. So February is, of course, as we've already talked about, a month when relationships are on the mind. This first week of February, we actually have Venus, the planet of love and relationships, style and fashion and art and inspiration, moving into a new sign. Venus is going to be moving into Aquarius on Monday, February 1st, adding one more planet to a hefty stellium, which is just usually a stellium as a group of 3 or more planets in one sign. Right now, we'll have the Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus all in the sign of Aquarius, plus Mercury, which has just stationed retrograde, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. And I also talked about that on last week's weekly forecast if you want more info on the Mercury retrograde that we are going through right now. Venus in Aquarius as a placement is very much, don't tell me that I'm beautiful, tell me that I am intelligent. It's interesting to me whenever Venus is in an air sign, because air signs are typically associated with, in herbalism, flowers. Sometimes, depending on who you follow, the fire signs are associated with flowers, but I definitely feel like Libra especially, it has a very strong association with flowers. And when we think about flowers, we think about, these truly beautiful pieces of nature. They're considered to be basically, like the crown jewel of any plant is the flower that it creates. Venus in Aquarius is very against that. Venus in Aquarius is often very beautiful, but what it prefers to have acknowledged about itself is its intelligence. And in a way, it can almost be a little bit detached from the idea of beauty. It's just not something that Venus in Aquarius is that interested in. So it's interesting to me at this time of year when, at least in the part of the world that I live in, it's cold and it's the iciest part of the year in the Midwest. And it is really beautiful, but it's in this way that is also very cold and not something that people necessarily always like or even understand. And that's also part of Venus in Aquarius, is this wanting to be different and rebellious and love me for the truth of who I am, the authentic, real truth of who I am, not for what you want me to be. So that's the energy that we have with Venus moving through Aquarius. And like I said, it's in this whole stellium of planets with Mercury in Aquarius, Saturn in Aquarius, Jupiter in Aquarius, the Sun in Aquarius. And at the end of January, Mercury stationed retrograde in Aquarius, and it's going to stay retrograde until February 20th. So when Mercury stations retrograde, it's usually a period of reflection and rethinking. On February 1st, Mars and Taurus will also make an exact square to the Sun in Aquarius, and this creates an action point related to the distribution of material resources potentially. And I think I talked about in the last video how at the very beginning of the Mercury retrograde pre-shadow period, that was around the time when we started hearing a little bit more about Joe Biden's plan for stimulus checks. So I feel like that cycle of making those decisions is going to get wrapped up in this upcoming Mercury retrograde cycle, and in the early part of this week we might be hearing some more news about that. But in our personal life, there could also just be some tension or pressure around making money, how we're going to make money, how we need to use our material resources, and maybe like make do with what we have right now in the moment. People are probably going to be getting a little bit more like, where's my check? Where's my $2,000 check? You know, and I think we've even had, you know, a lot of people have been tweeting about that recently, about where is my, you know, $2,000 check, and pointing out all of the different politicians and saying, you know, like, you have my check, where's my money? On top of the change with Venus happening at the beginning of the week, on Monday, the moon will also be moving into Libra for the first few days of the week. And so this brings our focus to Venus-related issues once again, because Venus is the ruler of Libra. So relationships, but also, as I've kind of been talking about, some of the tension around maybe finances. So it's about maybe some concerns around finances, but also like, how are we going to work with our networks and work with our relationships around material resources. So the first few days, or the first part of the week, we could be having some more focus on those kinds of concerns, and the moon will also be waning during this period of time. While some people might feel a little bit lower energy right here at the beginning of this week while the moon is waning, others are seeking adventure and change. Slow and gradual progress over the days ahead is probably required, and it's important to keep your physical body and spirit moving to release any pent-up or stagnant energy. So don't skip your movement routines, even if you're feeling a little bit lethargic. February 3rd, the moon will enter into Scorpio, which is part of the fixed square we have moving in and out right now, Mars and Uranus in Taurus, as well as the stellium of planets in Aquarius, and then Scorpio will also be square to these two signs. So it's all fixed energy, and part of that could be getting angry or frustrated about like our feel like we're not able to make progress, and we could become impatient during this period of time. And with the moon in Scorpio, we might feel like there's really no good way for us to express how we're feeling, and we have to make this slow and steady gradual progress rather than just like taking action the way that we want to. On Friday, February 5th, the moon will enter into Sagittarius, and this is really when, if you've had a hard time moving even your body over the course of the week, by Friday, hopefully you'll be able to get some of that pent-up energy and move it out. If it's possible for you to go out and go for a walk or even go for a drive, if that's, safe and accessible to you, go someplace you haven't been in a while. These types of things could be really good and nourishing for you, your body, your soul, your mind, all of this stuff, because there is so much fixed energy happening right now. That opportunity to move can help to imbue you with a little bit more optimism. Or if you can't get out of the house, turning on some music or dancing around and doing some kind of moving meditation could be really useful during this period of time. We're moving into the darkest part of the moon cycle over the weekend, and so you could feel really drained. So remember that you don't have to do you don't have to climb a mountain, you don't have to do a marathon. Just have 15 minutes of something that just kind of gets your heart rate up a little bit, and that'll help you to just feel like there's progress, even if this week feels a little bit like a slog. We're examining limitations and commitments in our relationships and finances on February 6th with Venus conjunct Saturn and Aquarius. And we have that exact square from Uranus and Taurus happening at this point in time too. And so we want to change things up and do something that's out of the ordinary. If you're partnered with somebody and one person wants to break out and go on the adventure and the other one wants to rest on the couch and not really do anything, some resentment could start to build there. The exploring soul wants to expand their horizons and feel that sense of independence. And some people might be okay with going out on their own, but others are going to really want to have, their partner or their friend come along with them. So for the people who are more likely to want to stay home and rest, it's important to remember that sometimes you need to get out and break out of your routine too. Because during this period of time with so much fixed energy, we could be feeling a little bit more like, I am good just to stay here. But at the same time, with the square and Uranus also being in the mix with the square, there's still that tension of I want to go out and I want to do something. When the moon enters into Sagittarius, another thing that you might notice come up, and it's maybe already started coming up for some people, whenever Mercury goes retrograde, there can be a tendency of things from the past to come up. And right now, the asteroid Juno, which has to do with relationships, is also around the South Node in Sagittarius. So you could notice over the weekend when the moon is in Sagittarius that there's some additional layers to that of people from the past, relationships coming up, or also things that have been discussed about or talked about in your relationships previously and maybe not been completely resolved coming back up around for discussion and review. So it's a good time to, if you find yourself in that situation, rather than sitting and talking it out, you might benefit from going out and doing something that kind of helps you to remember why you are attracted to this person and talk about things that are exciting to you, rather than spending all of your time talking about maybe some issues that are arising once again. I say that at least in part because with fixed energy, there can sometimes just be stubbornness. And so sometimes we pick a fight just because we want to be right, and it's not actually that important. So just be aware of that over the course of the weekend. What hill is it that you really feel like you need to stake your claim on? If you enjoyed this forecast, I would love to see you back here next week. Be sure to hit subscribe below and you'll get a notification when the new video comes up. Have a great week.